Hey Alexa for Urban News, and I'm currently in Vimont, Montreal, because today I'm going to have an interview with the candidate of the Conservative Party of Quebec, Mr. Stefano Piscitelli, and we will talk about what is see so far as the challenge for his own riding. But you need to understand that he's a father of 4 children. He's a businessman, and he saw a lot of trouble with the business here around during the pandemic. So we will discuss about it, and we will discuss about the election campaign and as well the vote that will be the 3rd of October. Let's check it out. So, but first of all, can you a little bit explain to the people who doesn't know you, what is your background?
So my background, I've been spending most of the last 20 years working in digital and business transformation. So helping large companies become more efficient, bringing new technologies, optimize their processes, in the end, giving a better service to their clients. And when I look at my background and I look at the government, I say, wow, there's a perfect fit because I can go and clean up things and make that, our government more efficient. So that's where I'm coming from my professional experience.
And why going in politics?
Honestly, I never imagined myself in politics. I never thought I'd be running. I have people that ask me, well, what's your secondary objective? I don't have a secondary objective. I have one objective. It's to make sure that our kids have the same opportunities that we had growing up. So, and the only thing that should be stopping our kids from moving ahead is the effort that they want to put in, not the obstacles that the government is putting in their way. So, with the pandemic that we lived and the 2.5 years and even pre-pandemic, I would say, for me, I know, our party supports Bill 21, but personally, I was never a big believer in it. So I saw Bill 21, I saw the pandemic handling, I saw Bill 96. I said, maybe it's time for us to leave here. Like, it's as if we're not wanted anymore, right? And in discussions with my wife, we decided to stay, but I said, I'm going to throw myself into politics and I want to make a change. I want to make sure my kids have those same opportunities that I had growing up.
So I'm going to bring the double standard here during the campaign. We saw that Mr. Éric Duhaime was really targeted because of his tax that was not paid, but nobody have talked about the fact that 10 years ago, Mr. Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois was expelled from his apartment because he didn't pay it, and he was judged in front of court. Why do you think there is a huge gaps in between the standard that we give to the Conservative Party to the other party?
When we met for the first time, you and I, you asked me, I believe, a question as to what was going to be our biggest challenge in this election. And I said, having an unbiased media. And I can't say, I don't know for certain. I don't know, how the media works and their funding. I don't know how they operate. But it's clear to me that when we're looking at the way Éric Duhaime is treated in anything, whether it be in a debate, in a discussion, it seems like the attacks are stronger against us than against the other parties. Why is that? Maybe there's a threat. Like if you look at most of the other parties, they're very leftist in terms of approach. We're the only party that's more, right of center or very center to right of center. And there seems to be globally a threat with these parties. So we see these movements internationally, and we saw Italy recently, and we see the attacks that the new prime minister is facing there. It seems to be I don't want to talk. It's not like a conspiracy thing, or it seems to be a threat to media companies or governments internationally having center or right of center parties getting social acceptance. And when I look at it globally, it seems to be a common trend, I would say.
You're a businessman. You work your whole life on this field. What do you think about the management that caused a lot of bankruptcy for company?
I've always broken the pandemic kind of in 3 phases. There was the first 3 months, the next 3 months, and then the rest. So in the first 3 months, nobody knew what was going on, and we had information from overseas, what we saw in Italy, what we saw in New York, what we saw a bit everywhere. So the first 3 months was panic. Then the next 3 months, and I think that took us to roughly May, June, July, summertime, things went somewhat back to normal. And then we thought we were going to go back to a normal kind of lifestyle. And then there was everything else since then. And when you look at the everything else, in my mind, a lot of it didn't make sense. I was looking at the stats every day from our government, and it was clear that the people who were more at risk were the elderly, the 70 plus. Yet we were penalizing everyone, and by everyone I mean individuals, kids, businesses. Everybody suffered. The elderly, everybody suffered. So I don't understand how those decisions were made. I understand, the element of public health, absolutely. But once you start looking at the trends and you say, okay, well, if these are the impacted people, why are we penalizing the stores? How do you determine what stores essential versus not essential? How do you determine that in a same store you have some items that are essential and some that are not essential? Like, there was just a lot of nonsense for me. And when I saw that, and I saw, it's mostly the affected were the small and medium businesses, people that are running their businesses for a long time, and almost on a day-to-day and month-to-month basis. We saw a lot of these businesses shutting down over time because they couldn't last the pandemic, they couldn't last the decisions that were made. And I feel like the government felt that they were collateral damage, but how big is that collateral damage versus, what positive impact there was? I don't know. Again, I don't know the final outcome. If somebody did an unbiased summary of this is what we did and these were the impacts, how would that story be told in the aftermath? I'm not sure.
So we know that we live in a society where the tolerance have been almost evaporated. People have a problem with tolerance in between each other. How you will deal with this kind of intolerance that's rising up in between people who wants different things?
So I could tell you how I'm running my campaign, right? My campaign, I go door to door and I don't twist anybody's arm to vote for me. And I know some of my political opponents are doing it. They're begging for votes, and I take a completely different approach. Number one, it's a human approach. Number two, I tell people, if what I'm telling you makes sense, vote with your values. If what I'm talking to you about is aligned with your values, you vote for it. If it's not aligned with your values, you look for the platform and the party that's giving you what's aligned with your values. I think we need to come back to the human side of things, and we have to take politics to some degree, the media also out of it. They have a huge influence, right? The media has a huge influence on the way people see things and the way the ideas that they repeat. So if you mute those elements and you just look at the foundations of what one party is offering versus another party, what they're offering, you come back to the human side of things, and I think that's what's critical in what we do. In the general world, I find people are becoming more and more intolerant, and maybe it's a big city thing versus a smaller countryside thing. I've traveled a lot in my life. When I go to smaller towns, people look up, they look at each other, in the eyes, they say hi, they say good morning. When you're in the big city, your head is down, you're rushing, and you're trying to get to your destination the quickest as possible. I think if we just go back to those human elements, I think a lot of the behaviors we see today would change, honestly.
What do you think that is the biggest problem in our society today?
I don't know if there's one biggest problem. Like there's a lot of problems. For me, I don't want to pinpoint on one specific thing. My biggest concern is around the future generations, around the kids, around even us, and what our next steps are in lives. So I've gone around. I've met a lot of the elderly, for example, and they're like, well, whatever you're telling me doesn't help me. I said, you're right. Maybe what we're offering you doesn't help your specific case, but if we don't build the right foundations for the future, they won't have what it takes to be well equipped to succeed. So I don't want to say the biggest problem, but my concern is primarily around how the next generations, how they're going to evolve, how they're going to take ownership. Are they going to have that same drive that we had? And I know every generation they say, oh, the next generation, they're lazier. But I still see, I'm in my mid 40s. I know a lot of people who succeeded personally, professionally, because they were determined and they were driving their ideas. They failed, they started over, they tried again. I hope we're not building a society of dependency, of dependent people who are, just waiting for handouts, and that we lose that creativity, we lose that drive that people have, and that's what makes us go forward.
When you go to see the people, when you knock at their door, you talk a little bit with them. What is their biggest concern about what is going on?
I would say most of the people in this riding, in this area, I think they have the same concerns on where are we going, right? They see that, we're the highest taxed province, the cost of living is going up, the services we get are not to the level that we're expecting. So from my perspective, that's, I think, at least in this riding, I can't speak for all of Quebec, but when I look at our riding, the cost of living, the crumbling infrastructures that we have, or the lack of service that we're getting, healthcare is on everybody's mind. Really, like the biggest, I would say, feedback that comes back is, how do I get a family doctor? Like nobody, and it's the elderly at most. So their family doctors have retired, and there's no replacement, right? So they're all. I've had people say, if you find me a family doctor, I'm voting for you. I'm not a magician, but I think the healthcare system is and the amount of taxation and the cost of living are really the pieces that come out the most in our riding.
Mm-hmm. What is your last word for the people who doesn't know you and wants to know a little bit more about your action plan, who you are, your final word?
So honestly, I'm somebody that's been involved in the community here for many years. I've been living in Vimont for almost 25 years. For me, the kids are everything. So I'm involved with my kids and their different activities. I spent thousands of hours volunteering in the different sporting associations, whether it be in soccer and hockey, boys and girls. At the end of the day, for me, it's the human interaction that matters the most. So I tell everybody the same thing. When I go door to door, I tell them the same thing. Vote with your values. Like, vote for the person that you see yourself the most in, for the plan that gives you, that's more aligned with your values, and put that ahead of anything else. If we get back to those basic fundamentals of humanity and respect, I think everything will go really well.
So you will not begin a green plan?
I don't a green plan. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody needs to be aware of their own contribution to society, right? And whether it's positive or negative. So if you think you're doing negative things, maybe it's time to change your habits and do. I remember growing up, everybody said every little bit helps. So if everybody does their little part, every little bit helps, right?
So, 3rd of October, it will be the vote in Quebec. We will have a live stream during that night to show you what is going on during the vote election. If you want to join us and if you want to see all our report, go to quebecelection.ca, and in the same time, chip in generously so we can continue our journalism. Thank you very much.